He ignored her calls. She died. He never knew she carried his child. Now, 3 years later, a little girl hums a secret only her mother could teach. Someone is coming for her, and the silhouette will kill anyone who touches her. Before we dive into today's journey, I want to know, where are you watching me from and what time is it there right now? And if you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Your single click gives me so much energy and appreciation. Now let's dive in. Rain sheeted down the glass walls of Kaelen Vex's penthouse, sliding like cold tears over the panoramic view of the city he owned, without ever needing to show his face. The storm wasn't gentle. It hammered against the reinforced windows in feral bursts, as if the sky itself wanted to warn him of something coming, something he wouldn't see until it was far too late. Inside, Kaelen stood over a black marble table covered in operation files. Digital maps flickered with red points, each representing a man whose life depended on his decisions. Precision mattered tonight. One miscalculation, one distraction, and a carefully crafted 6-month infiltration could implode. Kaelen didn't tolerate implosions. His encrypted phone vibrated once, twice. Then it wouldn't stop. Unknown number, persistent, intrusive, aggravating. He didn't even look at it at first. His attention stayed locked on the shifting tactical display, glowing faintly in the dark room. The only light came from the screens and the occasional flash of lightning, painting Kaelen in brief, sharp silhouettes, cheekbones like carved stone, eyes cold enough to freeze an inferno. The phone kept vibrating. His jaw twitched. Irritation crackled through him, subtle but sharp. He tapped decline. It vibrated again instantly, a ghost refusing to be dismissed. Kaelen didn't believe in coincidences, but he believed even less in interruptions. His thumb pressed decline with a mechanical certainty. He had a rule. If someone was desperate enough to call repeatedly without sending an encrypted code, they weren't worth hearing. He sent the call to voicemail. Again and again. Across the city, Elara Vale gripped her phone like it was the last thread keeping her alive. The hospital room she occupied wasn't meant for long-term patients. The paint peeled near the ceiling, the fluorescent lights flickered as if they feared the storm too, and the scent of antiseptic clung to everything like a warning. Elara sat hunched on a cracked bed, her breathing shallow, her skin damp with sweat that wasn't just from pain. It was fear. Her contractions came too fast, each one a violent reminder that time was running out. She needed him, not for comfort, not for love, though those lived in her still buried deep, but because danger hunted her and she had run out of places to hide. The phone rang in her ear. It rang into silence. She tried again, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the device. Lightning flared through the window, illuminating her pale face, the wet shine in her eyes, the determination etched beneath the terror. She called again. Voicemail. She tried a 4th time, a 5th, a 6th. Her breath hitched with every unanswered ring, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. She pressed redial even as another contraction bent her over the bed rail. Finally, her voice broke. She left a message. Kaelen, it's me, please. I don't have long. I found something. You need to listen to... Her words tangled into a sharp gasp. It's not safe. They're closer than I thought. If you get this, Kael, don't... Another contraction, brutal and merciless, cut her message in half. She swallowed back tears, knowing the hospital walls had ears. Her breathing grew ragged, but she whispered one last sentence. A code, a warning, a plea he would recognize only when it was too late. Elara Vale. Room 309. Please, hurry. The phone slipped from her hand as her vision blurred. The world tilted. She stumbled into the hallway, clutching the wall for support. The storm shook the windows again, thunder rolling like distant artillery. Mikhail, the concierge, spotted her instantly. He froze. He knew that face. He knew that voice. He knew that woman, and he knew exactly what her presence meant. "Elara?" he whispered, rushing to her side. Her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the ground, her weight frighteningly light in his arms. The fear in her eyes wasn't fear of childbirth. It was fear of being found, fear of who might be hunting her, fear of what she carried, not just a child, but the truth that had driven her into hiding. "Help her!" Mikhail barked as he kicked open the emergency bay doors, nurses scrambling, a gurney squealing across the floor. They didn't move fast enough. Elara's breath hitched in short, frantic bursts. Her fingers clenched around the sleeve of Mikhail's coat, nails digging in. "Don't let them find her," she gasped. "Find who?" Mikhail leaned close, straining to hear her over the storm and shouting nurses. Her lips quivered. "My daughter." Her eyes rolled back as the contraction tore through her. The doctors rushed her into surgery. Mikhail stood alone in the hallway, soaked in sweat and dread. He wasn't a simple concierge. He was a man Kaelen had once saved, a man who owed him a life debt. Yet here he was, holding a secret that felt like a live grenade in his chest. Hours blurred. Thunder rattled the hospital windows like the sky. "Wanted in." Nurses whispered behind clipboards. A doctor emerged with a solemn face that told Mikhail the truth before he spoke. "She didn't make it." Mikhail's throat locked. "And the baby?" The doctor hesitated only a fraction of a second. "Stillborn." The word hit like a clean, cruel blade. Rain slammed harder against the glass as the nurse marked the form and stamped the newborn's chart with a hollow X. Elsewhere in the city, Kaelen Vex finally checked his phone. 16 missed calls. 16. For a man who saw patterns in everything, this number punched straight into his chest. He tapped the voicemail tab. The first message played, Elara's voice trembling. He went still, completely still. The screens, the operation, the empire, it all faded. He played the next voicemail. And the next. Her fear slipped through the speakers like poison. His throat tightened, but he stayed stone-faced, forcing his emotions back into the steel box he kept buried under discipline and denial. Before he could open the final voicemail, his phone rang. Hospital line. He answered. "This is Vex." "Mr. Vex." A pause, a hesitant breath. "We're sorry for your loss." Kaelen didn't react at first. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. "What loss?" His voice was low enough to fracture bone. The doctor continued. "Elara Vale was admitted tonight. Complications arose during—" The rest blurred into white noise. "Dead." The word echoed in his skull like a verdict. He ended the call without speaking. His hand tightened around the phone until the metal creaked. His pulse pounded in his ears like war drums. After an eternity of silence, he pressed play on the final voicemail. Elara's breathing was panicked, uneven. "They found me, Kael, they—" A scream cut through the recording. The message ended abruptly, cut short, cut off. Kaelen froze. The room felt colder. The storm raged harder. The city lights flickered. Something monstrous unfurled inside him, grief sharpened into a blade. He replayed the scream, slowly, mechanically, and realized something chilling. In the background of Elara's final voicemail, he could hear another voice whispering a name he recognized, a name belonging to someone inside his own syndicate. The cemetery wasn't a place Kaelen Vex frequented. His world was built in penthouses, boardrooms, and shadows, not in fields of carved stone and rotting flowers. Yet here he stood, boots sinking into mud as the storm's aftermath clung to the air like a curse. He followed a trembling attendant across rows of nameless graves until they stopped at a slab of cheap limestone sinking into the wet earth. "This is her," the attendant whispered, avoiding Kaelen's eyes. Elara Vale, buried like a stranger. No inscription, no dates, no dignity. The rain had washed half the soil away, exposing rough edges, as if the earth itself rejected the lie placed inside it. Kaelen didn't kneel, didn't touch the stone, didn't act like a lover mourning a woman. He stood perfectly still, jaw locked, breath steady. But a fissure had cracked something deep and usually untouchable inside him. Not warmth, not tenderness. Something harsher, a violent, suffocating sense of consequence. He'd built an empire on the belief that emotions were design flaws. Now the city felt like it was laughing at him. The grave looked like an insult carved into the world. He stared at the stone so long, the cemetery attendant shifted nervously. "Sir, we can arrange a proper—" Kaelen raised a hand. The attendant fell silent immediately. Lightning flickered across the horizon, illuminating Kaelen's expression. Lifeless, calculating, but with a new depth of something dangerously close to grief. He didn't speak. The words he could have said, "Why was she buried like this? Why didn't anyone call me sooner? Why did she die alone?" were too raw for a man who survived by pretending nothing could cut deep enough to matter. He stepped away from the grave without a sound, the air around him dropping in temperature. His men, waiting at a respectful distance, fell into silent formation as he approached. "Find everything," he ordered. That was all. They didn't ask what everything meant. They knew. The hunt began that night. He returned to Elara's last known address, an apartment that looked untouched but breathed with the ghosts of hurried exits and secrets packed in desperation. The landlord claimed she left peacefully. Kaelen noted the lie instantly from the man's trembling hands and forced smile. Inside the unit, Kaelen searched with the precision of a surgeon. Elara never left chaos behind. Her world had always been order, music, fragile beauty. So when he found the smashed lamp, the scraped floorboards, and the fingerprints of a struggle, he knew immediately. She had been running, and someone else had been there. He ripped up the carpet beside the bed, revealing a hidden panel in the floor. Inside was a small, velvet-lined cavity holding a single item. A black USB drive, half burnt, half melted, as if someone tried to destroy it but didn't finish the job. He pocketed it and moved deeper into the apartment. The cello case in the corner drew him like gravity. He opened it. The instrument was gone, leaving only a folded cloth and a small paper note tucked into the corner, written in Elara's looping script. "If you're reading this, listen to the melody." His pulse tightened. The melody. Her last voicemail. The one he hadn't understood. Before he could search further, a soft scuffling sound drew his attention to the doorway. Mikhail, the concierge. His uniform was immaculate, but his eyes were bloodshot, hollow, carrying more weight than a simple hospital worker should know. "You shouldn't be here," Mikhail said quietly. Kaelen didn't move. "You knew her." It wasn't a question. It was a verdict. Mikhail didn't deny it. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him with slow, precise movements. "She was afraid," he murmured. "Not of you, of what was coming, of who was watching." Kaelen's gaze sharpened. "Who?" Mikhail swallowed hard. "I don't know, but she said it was connected to your world, to people close to you." Kaelen didn't react. He simply let the words lodge inside him like shrapnel. Mikhail hesitated, then added, "She asked me to protect what mattered most." And what was that? Her child. Kaelen froze. For a moment, just a moment, the floor shifted under his feet. "Elara was pregnant," Mikhail continued. "She tried to tell you. She tried many times, but she believed you wouldn't come unless she found the evidence first." The truth sucked the air out of the room. The broken USB, the coded melody, the panicked calls, pieces in a puzzle he hadn't bothered to assemble. Kaelen's voice turned lethal. "The child?" Mikhail lowered his gaze. "Stillborn." The word cracked the room open. Kaelen's control wavered, not visibly, not dramatically, but in a subtle tremor of his hand. He closed his fist to stop it. "She died in fear," Kaelen said, voice muted, dangerous. Because I didn't answer." Mikhail didn't respond. There was nothing he could say that wouldn't be a lie or an insult. Kaelen left the apartment without another word. The city swallowed him whole. Back in his penthouse, the string of voicemails glowed on his phone like confessionals. He listened again. Every breath, every pause, every detail. He amplified background noise. He slowed the recording. He isolated frequencies. In the last voicemail, beneath Elara's scream, something else lurked. A whisper. A voice he recognized. Not a stranger. Not an enemy. A man Kaelen had trusted with operations, decisions, secrets. A lieutenant who had stood beside him for years. Hearing that voice triggered something primal inside Kaelen. Deep, cold, violent. The storm outside intensified as if responding to him. He replayed the final seconds again. The whisper repeated the same word, package. Kaelen knew what that meant in his world. Not an object, not cargo, a person, his child. His jaw clenched, muscles grinding like gears. Elara's death wasn't a tragedy. It was a strategy, a tactic, a move made on a board he thought he controlled. He rose slowly, the USB in one hand, the phone in the other. Lightning carved the city in jagged white lines behind him. Everything he'd built, the empire of controlled shadows, the cold logic, the detachment, felt suddenly fragile. He had been attacked not through his power, but through the one thing he never protected, his heart, and now he would protect nothing else. But when he inserted the damaged USB into his encrypted system, expecting corrupted data, the screen flickered. Lines of code flashed, audio waveforms scattered. The device screamed with looping static. Then something impossible happened. The audio cracked open, revealing a new hidden layer beneath the melody. A message encoded in frequencies only someone with Elara's musical mind could have crafted. A message meant for Kaelen alone. It said, "She isn't dead." His pulse stopped. The screen glitched violently. Static erupted. The final second of the recovered message whispered a location, a children's shelter across the city, and one line that made his blood run cold. "He knows you're coming." Before Kaelen could move, one of his penthouse windows exploded inward. Someone had fired a sniper round straight at the USB drive in his hand, erasing the proof before he could read more. Only one conclusion was left. Someone in his own organization already knew the truth, and they were hunting whatever Elara died to protect. 3 years had carved themselves into Kaelen Vex like ice burrowing into bone. Time didn't heal him. It calcified him. Every move he made was exact, sharp, sterilized of humanity. His empire expanded with ruthless efficiency, yet there wasn't a single moment in which he wasn't aware of the hollow ache living behind his ribs. He had once believed grief would soften over time. Instead, it settled into him like a second spine, rigid, cold, unyielding. Tonight was no different. Another charity function, another front he maintained to keep the law at a comfortable distance, another stage-managed illusion of benevolence masking the machinery underneath. The event was held in an old converted warehouse turned children's shelter, its walls painted with cheerful murals that looked more desperate than hopeful. Kaelen walked through the halls with the detached focus of a man inspecting a business deal. His men lingered nearby, silent shadows. No one approached him unless forced. Even kindness dissolved under the gravity of his presence. But then, a sound, faint, delicate, unmistakably familiar, a melody, not a nursery rhyme, not a children's song, a lullaby, Elara's lullaby, the one she used to play on her cello's lowest string when the world felt too sharp and she needed to soften it with sound, the one she whispered into Kaelen's shoulder during the rare nights she let herself trust him, the one she once said, "Felt like home?" For 3 years, Kaelen had heard that melody only in nightmares and ghosts of memory. Now it drifted through the hallway like a phantom breathing into his ear. His blood iced, his steps slowed. He turned. A small child sat on the floor of the playroom, knees tucked under her, as she built a crooked tower of mismatched blocks. Her hair curled in soft, unruly spirals. Her hum was steady, precise. Too precise for a child her age. She didn't seem aware of the world around her. She didn't need to be. Kaelen stood in the doorway, frozen. The child didn't look up, but she didn't have to. Her profile struck him like a physical blow. Her face, Elara's. Her eyes, gray, clear, sharp, his. It felt like someone had detonated a charge inside his chest. His breath stuttered, the first crack in his perfect composure in years. A roar rose inside his skull, drowning out the sound of the storm outside, the hum of fluorescent lights, the distant chatter of children. He stepped forward, a single step. The child paused mid-hum, her fingers hovering over a red block. Her head tilted as though she sensed something, someone near her, but she didn't turn. Kaelen swallowed hard, the motion painful. His mind refused to make the connection. His logic tried to dismantle it. His certainty fought it. Impossible. Elara was gone. The baby was gone. He had mourned both. Yet here she was. A small life humming a song only her mother and Kaelen once shared. Before he could speak, he sensed movement behind him, a presence he knew too well. Mikhail, the concierge. His face was drawn, guilt carved into the lines around his mouth, exhaustion hanging beneath his eyes. He'd aged a decade in 3 years, and Kaelen had been too wrapped in grief and rage to notice or care. Now the meaning of that exhaustion clicked into place with brutal clarity. Kaelen turned his head slowly, deadly quiet. Mikhail's expression answered every question. He knew, he had always known. The lie of the stillborn, the false grave, the anonymity, the secrecy, all orchestrated by the man who owed Kaelen his life. Kaelen's voice scraped out like broken glass. "You hid her!" Mikhail flinched but didn't look away. "I hid her to keep her alive." Kaelen's hands tightened into fists at his sides. His heartbeat was a war drum, slamming against the inside of his skull. The world shrank to 3 people. Himself, Mikhail, and the child who should have never existed. Or rather, the child he should have known. The truth detonated inside him. 3 years of memories flashed in violent sequence. Elara's frantic voicemails, her coded melody, her final scream, the whisper of conspiracy, the sniper round striking the USB, the warning about someone waiting, the lingering sense he had missed something, someone. It had been Izzy all along. The girl moved 1 block to stabilize her leaning tower. Her hum wavered slightly, the melody dipping into a minor note Elara used to play only when she was afraid. He took another step toward her. His fingers twitched upward, the instinct to reach for her fighting against the terror of shattering her. Small world with his presence. He didn't deserve to say her name, but the name existed anyway. Izzy. Izzy Kaelen Vex. A child built from the only woman he loved and the man he used to be before everything rotted inside him. He opened his mouth. The shelter's alarm system erupted into a shrill screech, slicing the air like a knife. The room exploded into chaos. Children cried. Staff rushed into motion. Doors slammed. The fluorescent lights flickered erratically, plunging corners into shadow. Kaelen spun toward the entrance. No one had triggered a fire alarm. This was a breach alert. Someone else had found her. His pulse turned lethal. "Move!" he barked at his men, already positioning himself in front of the playroom door. His body became a shield he had been 3 years too late to raise. Mikhail grabbed Izzy instinctively, but the child didn't cry. Not yet. Her gaze locked on Kaelen with unbroken, unnerving clarity. Something in her recognized him. Not consciously, not fully, but something in her blood vibrated in response to his presence. Then a second alarm blared, sharper, mechanical, wired into the building's security system, a targeting alert. Kaelen's eyes snapped upward. A small, perfect red dot hovered over Izzy's chest. A sniper. inside the shelter, heartbeats stretched into a standoff with fate. Kaelen lunged. The sniper's laser tightens its angle on Izzy's heart as a silenced gunshot ruptures the air, aimed directly at the little girl he has only just discovered exists. The bullet punched into the stack of donated books instead of Izzy's chest, ripping through paper and wood in an explosion of dust. Kaelen didn't think. He moved, pure instinct given form. His hand shot out, grabbing Izzy by the back of her small jacket and yanking her against his chest. He flipped the nearest table in one brutal motion. The impact rattled the floor. Children shrieked. Wood splintered. Izzy's tiny fingers clutched his coat, but she didn't cry. Not yet. Shock held her in a suspended silence that felt more fragile than glass. Kaelen pressed her head against him, shielding her completely as he drew his weapon with his free hand. A sharp, controlled breath steadied him, the kind only a man who'd killed too many times could summon. The sniper attempted a second shot. Kaelen didn't give him the chance. He rolled across the floor, Izzy tucked tight to his body, using each overturned bench and table as cover until he angled his line of sight through the shattered window. A silhouette stood on the adjacent rooftop, rifle raised. Kaelen lifted his pistol and fired once. A single cold, perfect shot. The man dropped. Not a sound from him, not a scream, just the thud of a collapsing life swallowed by the storm. The message was unmistakable even before Kaelen said it aloud. Someone knew Izzy existed before he did. He felt that truth settle into him like poison. Mikhail stumbled into the room, pale and shaking. Kaelen shoved Izzy toward him only long enough to bark an order. "Car, now." He didn't shout. The danger inside him was too controlled, too lethal to require volume. They moved fast, slipping through emergency exits and into the alley where Kaelen's black-armored sedan waited. He shoved Mikhail into the back seat beside Izzy and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. The rain hit the car like a drumline of warnings. Kaelen slid behind the wheel. Then he turned on Mikhail with a stare so murderous it could have incinerated the man on the spot. "Talk." Mikhail's mouth trembled. "Kaelen, talk." Mikhail broke. Words tumbled out of him in jagged pieces. Elara's pregnancy, the threats she uncovered, the coded messages she tried to send, the safe houses she fled between, the moment she collapsed at the hospital, the decision she made to fake the stillbirth so Kaelen wouldn't come charging in and get the child killed. And the grave? Kaelen's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. Mikhail's voice cracked. "She asked me to bury her anonymously. She feared your enemies would desecrate her body to get to the baby. I had no choice." Kaelen shot him a look that said clearly, "You always had a choice. You just chose wrong." Rage coiled inside him like a serpent ready to strike. His entire life ran on logic, on control, on knowing things before they happened. But this blindsided him. Izzy's soft sob from the back seat snapped the tension like a blade. Kaelen's head turned sharply. The sight of her crying, quiet, confused, gripping the seatbelt like it was the only anchor she had, hit him harder than the gunfire. He froze. He had no blueprint for this, no training, no weapon, no method. Comforting a child was foreign territory, more terrifying than facing down a dozen armed men. He reached out with a stiff, hesitant hand. She flinched. His hand stopped mid-air. Something inside him fractured. He tried again, softer. "You're safe." Izzy wiped her eyes, with the back of her small hand, sniffing softly. Her gaze lifted to him, wide, wary, impossibly intelligent for her age. "You're loud," she whispered. The words weren't an accusation. They weren't even fear. They were truth. The truth she saw in him instantly. Kaelen leaned back, breath locking in his throat. That single observation pierced deeper than any bullet aimed at him. He wasn't built for softness. He wasn't built for children. He wasn't built for fatherhood. but he would have to become all three if he wanted to keep her alive. The drive back to his penthouse was silent except for the storm. Each street lamp streaked across the windshield in stark flashes, illuminating Izzy's small silhouette reflected in the rearview mirror. Her eyes never left him, not once. He parked in the private underground garage beneath his building and ushered both Kaelen and Izzy inside. His men secured every entrance, every hallway, every angle. The penthouse transformed into a fortress within minutes, Kaelen's command executed without hesitation. Inside the living space, Izzy clung to Mikael's coat until she saw something on a side table. A small, ornate wooden box carved with delicate floral patterns. Elara's music box. A relic Kaelen had kept locked away because he couldn't bear the sound it made. Izzy approached it without fear, fingers tracing the grain of the wood. She opened the lid gently. A soft chime spilled into the room. Elara's melody, fragile and haunting, drifting like a ghost from the past. Kaelen's lungs tightened. He hadn't heard that melody since her final voicemail. The coded message he failed to decode in time. Izzy listened with her head tilted, eyes closing as if the music soothed something ancient inside her. Mikael watched from the doorway, guilt tightening every muscle in his face. Kaelen's mind raced. Someone in his syndicate wanted the girl gone. Someone who knew Elara's pregnancy was a threat. Someone who had waited 3 years for the perfect moment to strike. Someone close. Someone trusted. Someone still in his inner circle. The melody slowed as the music box wound down. Izzy opened her eyes and looked at Kaelen, not with fear, but with a strange familiarity. She hummed along, but then she added notes. Notes she shouldn't know. Notes that weren't in the lullaby. Notes Kaelen recognized from the corrupted USB, pieces of the cipher Elara coded into her music before she died. His blood froze. Izzy wasn't just remembering a lullaby. She was unlocking something. Something Elara left behind. Something that pointed to the conspiracy. Izzy hummed the sequence again, fingers tapping the air like she was playing a small, invisible piano. The hair on Kaelen's arms rose. This wasn't chance. It wasn't instinct. It was inheritance. Izzy finished the phrase and looked up at him with brutal innocence. Mama said this part means danger. Kaelen went still. Every light in the penthouse flickered. Every shadow felt heavier. Every instinct inside him screamed the same truth. Someone was coming. Before Kaelen could speak, Izzy added one final note, a sharp, dissonant tone that didn't belong to the lullaby at all. It was a warning tone used only in Elara's encrypted files, and at that exact moment the penthouse's silent alarm triggered. Someone had breached the building. The penthouse was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. Even the storm outside had waned to a dull patter against the reinforced glass. But inside, Kaelen Vex felt the weight of years collapse onto him. His empire was untouchable. His enemies were terrified. His allies whispered behind closed doors. And yet, the smallest being in the world, a child of 3, had brought him to a precipice far beyond anything his logic could defend against. Izzy sat cross-legged on the floor, her tiny fingers tapping at a toy piano with uncanny precision. Each note resonated faintly in the empty space, but Kaelen heard more than sound. He heard intention, structure, memory. He had never imagined a child could carry music like this. Not just music, but a map, a key, a message layered in her bones before she even learned to speak. These notes. Mama said it's a message, Izzy said softly, her voice threading through the room like a fragile cord. Kaelen froze, every muscle taut. Blood turned cold. His eyes narrowed. She wasn't just a child mimicking patterns. She was decoding in real time what her mother had spent 9 months embedding in her consciousness. Elara had trained her without knowing it, trained her in secret, taught her vigilance, prepared her for danger. He knelt beside her, voice low, almost reverent. "What do you mean, Izzy? Who sent this message?" She tapped a note again, slow, deliberate. "Mama said I have to show you. It's for you, but you have to listen carefully." Kaelen's hands tightened on his knees. He could barely breathe. He had spent years imagining what it would mean to be a father. None of it had prepared him for this. The weight of inherited knowledge, of a child who carried the ghosts of the woman he loved, of a secret that might undo everything he had built. He rose, silent as a shadow, and moved to their old apartment, the one Elara had fled from all those years ago. The place smelled of time trapped under dust, of memories preserved in layers of neglect. He examined the walls with precise, practiced eyes, looking for anything left untouched, anything that could hold secrets. A faint line in the paneling caught his attention. A hinge. He pressed against it. A wall panel clicked open, revealing a locked safe, its surface untouched for years. His fingers brushed it reverently. The lock yielded under his code, as though Elara had known he would come eventually. Inside, crystal microdrives lay stacked neatly, each labeled with a date corresponding to her pregnancy. Kaelen extracted one, heart hammering. He carried it back to the penthouse, isolating himself in the dim glow of the security lights, and inserted it into his encrypted reader. The first video flickered to life. Elara's face appeared, bright, smiling, vulnerable, whole. Kaelen's chest constricted at the sight of her, then tears, then fury. She spoke to the camera with a voice that was soft, harsh, broken, yet precise. "Kaelen, if you see this, it's because I couldn't trust you to be anywhere near me without risk. But your daughter, she deserves you. She deserves more than I can give right now." The camera angle shifted, showing Elara guiding a small, rounded belly. She placed Kaelen's hand on it through the lens, whispering, "Your father loves you. He just doesn't know how yet." Kaelen's chest tightened. He had spent years as a predator in the shadows, commanding fear, respect, loyalty. And yet now he watched himself fail at the one role he had never been trained for, being a father. The videos continued. Each entry was a chronicle of preparation, love, and terror. Elara smiled when she could, cried when she had to, and whispered coded warnings to her unborn child. She left instructions for hiding, for decoding, for surviving. She had anticipated the worst, but she had never expected Kaelen to ignore the calls. Then the tone shifted. The lights in her room dimmed. Her hands shook as she held her cello. The music she played was jagged, fractured, carrying messages within the melody, notes that Kaelen had learned to recognize as warnings. The video grew darker. She spoke of threats too close to home, names of men she had once trusted. Her face hardened as she described betrayals, conspiracies, and manipulation within Kaelen's inner circle. Finally, the last video. Elara appeared pale, almost gaunt, shadows under her eyes. She played the haunting melody Kaelen had once known by heart, the one interlaced with codes. 3 names flashed briefly across the background on a dim monitor. Kaelen froze. His stomach churned. One name, impossible. His most trusted advisor, his childhood friend, a man who had been beside him through every battle, every consolidation, every calculated risk, someone he had never questioned. The screen paused on the final frame. Kaelen's hands hovered over the controls, trembling with rage and disbelief. The penthouse was silent, too silent. Then, without warning, the soft hum of the security system ceased. No alert, no warning lights, no protective locks. Just dead silence. Kaelen's pulse spiked. He wasn't used to being blindsided in his own fortress. He looked to the hallway where Izzy played quietly with her toy piano. She hummed along again, the melody twisting into the coded pattern Elara had left. Notes she shouldn't have known. Kaelen rose slowly, every muscle taut. The hair on his neck prickled. He reached for his gun, instinct screaming. The door to the penthouse's main hall clicked. A shadow slid into the room. Kaelen's heart froze. The intruder wasn't in a mask. Not fully. Not yet. But the shape, the movement, the calculated precision, all spoke of someone who knew exactly how to move inside his walls. The intruder stopped just beyond the reach of the light, observing Kaelen, observing Izzy, observing the music box that had just chimed the haunting melody again. Kaelen's mind raced. The 3 names Elara had shown him, the coded message, the breach. Someone had infiltrated his fortress, and they were here for his daughter. The intruder stepped forward slowly, and in the dim light, Kaelen recognized the face of the one person he had never imagined could betray him, the childhood friend Elara had named in her final entry. A smile spread across the intruder's face, cold, calculated, deadly. "Hello, Kaelen," the voice whispered, "and I've come for her." Darkness swallowed the penthouse. The emergency lights flickered once, then died, leaving the space in total black. Kaelen's eyes adjusted instantly, pupils wide, muscles coiled like springs. Every sound amplified. The soft click of leather shoes on marble, the faint hum of the failing security system, the sharp inhale of a child clinging to him. Izzy pressed herself into his chest, arms around his neck, her tiny hands trembling. He held her with one arm, drawing the other to his side where his weapon had rested. In this darkness, even shadows were enemies. He moved silently, the way he had learned to move years ago, ghosting through familiar territory, every corner memorized, every angle accounted for. But the intruder had been here before. This wasn't a novice. Every step, every corner, every hallway, the man knew the penthouse like it was part of him. And then Kaelen heard the voice. "You weren't supposed to find her." It was calm. Too calm. Even under stress, the voice carried an unshakable confidence. A man who had no fear because he had planned every contingency. Kaelen froze mid-step. The words hit him like a hammer. His old friend. The man Kaelen had once trusted with his life, with his empire, with secrets that could topple nations, now stood in the darkness, emerging slowly, each motion deliberate, controlled. Every inch of him screamed danger. "Your air complicates the restructuring," the traitor continued, eyes glinting in the dimness, catching what little light remained. Kaelen's chest tightened. Every word was a knife, carving through years of loyalty and friendship. Betrayal wasn't new to him, but this was personal. This wasn't ambition alone. It was surgical. It was deliberate. It was designed to wound him where it hurt most, his family. Izzy whimpered against his neck. Her warmth, her fragility, the pulse of life she carried, all tethered Kaelen's fury to a sharp, precise edge. He took a single measured breath. "Why?" he demanded, voice low, dangerous. The traitor smiled, not kindly, not even cruelly, just with a detached precision that made Kaelen's blood boil. "Because she threatened everything," the man said, tilting his head slightly. "Elara knew too much. Your syndicate, your empire. It all needed to evolve, and you couldn't be allowed to interfere. A child changes the equation. Her death? Necessary, clean, calculated. And now—" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You found the pawn before the game even began." Kaelen's fists clenched, his vision narrowed. Every year of power, every operation, every brutal decision in the shadows had led to this moment. And yet nothing in his life had prepared him for a betrayal this close, this personal. He lunged. The penthouse erupted into chaos. Furniture shattered. Crystal chandeliers swung and fractured, splintering glass under the force of their struggle. Kaelen's body moved with lethal precision, every punch, kick, and block honed by years of instinct and necessity. The traitor matched him, blow for blow, anticipating weaknesses, exploiting angles Kaelen didn't even remember leaving exposed. It was a war fought in inches, the rhythm of violence precise and brutal. Kaelen's mind raced. He had to get Izzy to safety. Every instinct screamed it. He barked over the clash of fists and crashing furniture. "Go, now!" Mikhail appeared suddenly, grabbing Izzy, and Kaelen pushed forward, creating a corridor toward the side door. Izzy's small voice trembled. "Papa!" Kaelen didn't stop. He barreled forward, striking the traitor back, forcing him to stumble. He pressed Mikhail and Izzy toward the exit. But then a second assailant materialized from the shadows, silent, swift, trained, the kind of enemy who waited years for the right moment. Izzy screamed. Kaelen turned, instincts kicking in, only to see the figure lunge, blocking the child's escape path. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. The traitor advanced with his blade, sharp steel glinting, aimed directly at Kaelen. The sound of metal slicing air was deafening in the darkened room. Kaelen's mind worked in microseconds. Dodge, parry, protect Izzy, strike the enemy. Every possibility flickered and vanished. Then, a gunshot. It cracked through the darkness like thunder, echoing against the marble, the broken glass, and the chaos. Everything froze. Izzy's whimpering ceased. The traitor's attack faltered. But Kaelen didn't see who had been hit. The smoke and shadows cloaked the aftermath. The only certainty was that the bullet had found a target. Mikhail's grip on Izzy tightened, and the child clung to him like a lifeline. Kaelen's chest heaved. The adrenaline, the fear, the rage, it all roared inside him. His gaze darted wildly, scanning the room, searching for movement, for signs of the enemy. The darkness offered nothing. Only the metallic tang of blood in the air, mingling with the scent of broken wood and splintered crystal. Kaelen's mind raced. Who had fired? Who had been struck? Was the threat neutralized, or had it only just begun? He had no time to think. Every second Izzy spent in that room was a second closer to death. His pulse pounded. The traitor, his former friend, was still moving, still lethal, still focused on him. Kaelen knew one truth in the chaos. He had to act. He had to protect Izzy. He had to survive. And he had to face the man who had betrayed him, no matter what it took. Every shadow could conceal a threat. Every corner could hold a killer. Every heartbeat could be the last. The room felt like a trap, a cage, a mausoleum of memories and blood. Kaelen pressed forward, every movement calculated, precise, silent in intent, deadly in execution. But the gunshot had shifted the balance. Someone, maybe more than one, was already inside the penthouse beyond what he could perceive. Kaelen's hand went to his weapon, eyes narrowing. He whispered to himself, teeth clenched. If anyone touches her, anyone, no one survives this night. The storm outside raged, lightning slicing the city skyline in jagged streaks. And then, a chilling laugh echoed through the darkness. It wasn't the traitor. It was something colder, someone who had orchestrated everything from the shadows, someone who knew Kaelen's every move, someone who had been waiting. From the darkness, a voice, soft but deadly, whispered, "Let her go, Kaelen, or watch everything you built burn with her life." Kaelen froze, Izzy clinging to him. Outside, the city was quiet, but inside, the war for his daughter had only just begun. The rain had stopped outside, but the air inside the abandoned studio was thick with damp and decay. Dust motes floated in the shafts of moonlight streaming through broken windows, catching the faint glimmer of the city beyond. Kaelen Vex opened his eyes to shadows, the rough scent of antiseptic and rain clinging to the corners. Pain lanced through his side, the stitches Mikhail had forced into him hours ago still raw, still burning with each shallow breath. His hand instinctively went to the wound, but Izzy's small, warm presence beside him drew his attention immediately. She was unharmed, safe for now. Her wide gray eyes reflected concern and intelligence, far beyond her 3 years. She sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, tiny hands folded neatly in her lap, staring at him with unwavering focus. Kaelen swallowed hard. He had survived bullets, betrayal, and treachery. But seeing her, alive, here, after everything, it shattered the last pieces of the armor he had built around his heart. Mikhail crouched a few feet away, scanning the perimeter, every muscle taut with the lingering adrenaline of their escape. "We're safe," he said quietly, though the tension in his voice betrayed him. "For now." Kaelen didn't respond. Words had lost meaning. His mind was occupied elsewhere. He reached into his coat and extracted the corrupted USB. The device trembled slightly in his hand, almost like it carried the weight of Elara herself. He plugged it into the old audio deck in the corner of the studio. The static hissed, and a distorted cello melody began, fractured and broken, half lost to corruption. Izzy tilted her head, listening. Her small fingers reached toward the air as though coaxing the notes into shape. Then softly she hummed along. The sound of her voice, delicate but precise, filled the room, and something extraordinary happened. The broken melody began to resolve, notes snapping into place, harmonies forming where only noise had existed. The full melody emerged, perfect and haunting, for the first time since Elara had recorded it. Kaelen's heart seized. This wasn't merely music, it was a message. Every note carried meaning. Every shift in octave, every deliberate pause, every subtle variation formed a cipher. Elara had encoded the truth, naming the mastermind behind the conspiracy that had destroyed their lives. Kaelen leaned closer, deciphering each element. He traced the letters in the air, following the cadence like a map. The name revealed itself in terrifying elegance. The traitor was confirmed, not just anyone but someone inside the inner circle he had once trusted without hesitation. Mikhail's jaw tightened. "It's him." Kaelen didn't respond. His mind raced too quickly for speech. His hands shook as he lifted the cello bow, tracing the strings with reverence. He remembered nights spent watching Elara play, the way her fingers danced, the subtle tremor in her wrists that signaled danger or urgency. The recording shifted. Elara's voice entered, trembling yet resolute. "Kael, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it. Don't seek vengeance. Seek Izzy. Our daughter is the legacy we were meant to build." Kaelen's chest constricted. Tears threatened, but he swallowed them down, letting only the cold steel of purpose remain. Elara hadn't left instructions for revenge. She had left him the one thing that mattered, their daughter, their living legacy. Izzy's humming continued, almost instinctively correcting the broken parts of the corrupted audio. Each note she added revealed more, the final piece of the melody, the last letters of the cipher. Kaelen's hands trembled as he wrote it down, confirming names, dates, and locations. His eyes flicked across the room. The studio, long abandoned, crumbling, forgotten, was now the nexus of truth. Elara had confronted the conspirators here. The traitor would return. He would come tonight, following the only evidence left to destroy the rest. Kaelen stood slowly, muscles tight, scanning the room. Every piano key, every cello string, every shadow became a potential threat. He adjusted the placement of furniture as barricades, calculated angles, and prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Izzy watched him, humming softly. "Papa, the notes say, danger." He crouched down, brushing her hair back from her face. "I know, Izzy, I know." Mikhail moved to the door, eyes straining against the darkness. "They'll be here soon." Kaelen's pulse thrummed, every instinct screaming. He had survived assassins, betrayal, and syndicate wars, but this was different. This was personal. This was the first time he had to fight to protect someone who represented the only reason he hadn't completely become the monster he feared. He returned to the audio deck, replaying the melody over and over. Each iteration revealed another fragment of the code. Elara's voice, her music, Izzy's humming. They merged into a single message, one he now understood fully. The traitor wasn't just coming for Izzy. He was coming to erase the final pieces of Elara's work, to rewrite history, to strike at the heart of everything Kaelen had built. Kaelen readied his weapons, body taut with anticipation, eyes scanning every shadow. He placed Izzy behind a fortified piano, small but heavy enough to provide cover, and crouched low, his senses stretched to their limits. Mikhail's hand rested briefly on Kaelen's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that they were in this together. Then the studio lights flickered. Shadows danced across the walls, elongating, twisting, as if the darkness itself had taken shape. A soft scraping echoed from the soundproof wall at the back, the subtle, deliberate sound of someone moving with absolute confidence, someone who knew exactly where to step to avoid detection. Kaelen froze, every nerve alive. The footsteps came closer, measured, almost musical in rhythm. The intruder had not yet revealed himself, but his presence was undeniable. Izzy's hum faltered for a fraction of a second. Her small hands gripped the edge of the piano. Kaelen whispered in a voice barely audible, but deadly with resolve, "Stay behind me. Don't make a sound." The footsteps paused. Then slowly a shadow detached itself from the wall. The shape moved with predatory grace, deliberate and controlled. Kaelen's grip tightened on his weapon. Mikhail stepped slightly forward. The intruder's voice finally emerged, calm, measured, dripping with menace. "You think you can decipher her work and protect her?" Kaelen's eyes narrowed. Every muscle tensed, every sense screamed. Izzy hummed one final note, and then the intruder stepped fully into the moonlight. Kaelen recognized the face immediately, the traitor from the syndicate, the one Elara had named. But there was a second figure behind him, moving silently. A blade glinted in the shadow, aimed at Izzy. The room froze. Time itself seemed to pause. Kaelen's heartbeat thundered in his ears. The fight for their lives had begun, and there was no room for error. The studio smelled of rain and aged wood, a scent Kaelen had come to associate with ghosts and lost possibilities. Broken windows rattled as a gust pushed through, scattering sheets of dust and discarded sheet music across the floor. Shadows twisted across the walls, stretching like fingers across the room. Every corner could harbor death. Every shadow whispered of betrayal. The studio door opened slowly, deliberately. The faint click of polished shoes on concrete echoed unnaturally loud in the cavernous room. Kaelen froze, muscles taut, every sense sharpened to the edge of instinct. The traitor stepped inside, gun raised. But the weapon wasn't pointed at Kaelen. It was aimed at Izzy. The child froze in place, clutching the toy piano to her chest, tiny knuckles white, lips trembling over the melody she had been piecing together her entire life. Each note hummed in the air as if alive, fragile yet resonant with hidden power. Kaelen moved forward instinctively, positioning himself between his daughter and the intruder. His weapon was ready, steady in his hand, breathing slow, controlled. The calm before the storm. The traitor's smile was cold, deliberate, predatory. He did not rush. There was confidence in his measured pace. "Move, Kaelen," he said softly, almost conversationally. "She's the last thread." Every word hit like a scalpel, cutting into the man Kaelen had once been, the strategist, the conqueror, the silent master of shadows. But that man was gone. Kaelen felt the transformation in a heartbeat. The cold strategist had surrendered to something stronger, the father, the protector, the one who would not allow another betrayal, another life lost, not when the last piece of Elara's legacy, their child, stood before him. Izzy's fingers hovered above the tiny keys of the piano, trembling. One note pressed down, timidly at first, almost afraid of the sound. Then the melody surged. Kaelen had wired hidden speakers in the room days ago, small, nearly imperceptible, synced to the piano's sound. The corrupted recording of Elara's final piece, refined and completed by Izzy's humming, filled the room in perfect harmony with her toy piano. The traitor flinched. For a fraction of a heartbeat, his attention faltered, drawn by the music, by the pattern he hadn't anticipated. Kaelen seized that instant. The bullet left the barrel with perfect precision. Time slowed. The intruder's gun arm twitched mid-air. His body crumpled against the wall, collapsing into a heap of betrayal and finality. Silence followed. It was absolute. Izzy collapsed against Kaelen's chest, small arms wrapping around him, muffling her sobs against his shoulder. He held her tighter than he had ever held anything in his life, strong enough to anchor her to reality, tender enough to heal the fractured parts of both of them. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. In the stillness, Kaelen allowed himself a moment to feel what he had not allowed in years. Grief, relief, love. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply held her, breathing in her warmth, letting it anchor him to the present. Eventually, the storm outside cleared. The moonlight poured through the broken windows, illuminating the studio in a serene, ghostly glow. Kaelen lifted his head, eyes scanning the room one last time. The danger was over. The conspirators were neutralized. The final note had been struck. Years passed. The city still whispered about the silhouette, the enigmatic shadow who once ruled from darkness. But the man who had been feared, who had commanded armies and orchestrated empires, was gone. Kaelen and Izzy returned to the music studio. The walls were repaired, the broken windows replaced, but the shadows of memory lingered. Dust still clung to corners, and the faint echoes of old melodies haunted the floorboards. Kaelen lifted Elara's cello, the instrument carrying the weight of memory, love, and sacrifice. Izzy sat at the small piano beside him, hands poised but ready. They began playing together. Not a song of triumph, not a song of revenge. A lullaby carved from loss, remembrance, vigilance, and love. Every note spoke of Elara, of the battles fought and survived, of a promise etched into the air and heart. The city beyond listened, unaware. They feared the silhouette, yes, but the silhouette no longer existed. Only Kaelen remained, transformed, vigilant, bound by a single unbreakable mission to protect his daughter. The melody carried across the empty studio, soft but unyielding, echoing into the night. Each note was a memorial, a warning, and a vow. Kaelen's hands guided the bow gently, deliberately, over the strings. Izzy's fingers followed on the keys, careful but instinctively perfect. Together they completed the composition that Elara had begun, and that life had continued in Izzy's memory. In that harmony, Kaelen found peace. Not the peace of empire or conquest, but a vigilant peace born of survival, grief, and love. The lullaby ended. Silence settled, thick and heavy. Kaelen lowered the cello slowly, eyes fixed on Izzy. She smiled faintly, exhausted, yet radiant, and he felt the full weight of every year lost and reclaimed. The city outside remained dark, quiet, uncertain. But inside, the father and daughter shared a sanctuary built from ashes and love. Kaelen whispered softly to her, "No one touches you, ever again." Izzy nestled closer. "I know, Papa." They played again. A softer private piece this time, a promise not just of survival, but of legacy. A melody only they understood, a lullaby for a life reclaimed from betrayal, danger, and grief. The storm had passed, but Kaelen knew better than to trust completely. Vigilance was not just a word, it was a life. And in the shadows of the studio, behind the repaired walls, a faint echo lingered. A subtle movement in the corner, a whisper of air almost imperceptible. Kaelen's eyes flicked toward it. The night was not entirely silent. From the edge of the studio, unseen and patient, a shadow shifted. Someone or something was watching, waiting. Kaelen tightened his grip on the cello bow. His eyes narrowed, and the faintest trace of a smile crossed Izzy's face. The music would not stop, but the game was far from over.